So we all can at this point gain access to the new world test server. All you simply have to do is go to your Steam folder and you should see an option to go and download the new world test server. I've gone and done so, and you can see we can create a character and immediately have it on max level. That's pretty awesome. Now let's go and customize our character. Again, not going to particularly matter. Anything you do on this test server is not exactly going to be saved. What they're going to do is they're going to wipe the server every time they come out with a new patch. Don't expect any of your work done here to last very long. So again, we'll get the usual introduction and end up shipwrecked and beached, and there we have it. We join everybody else who's just standing around. I'm level 60 and we can go and check out the new weapons. We can see on the attributes page, we can now see that the Void Gauntlet is going to primarily be based off intelligence and secondary as focus, meaning this is going to be a beneficial weapon for a healer. Now we can also look at its abilities, which nicely all of them are on max rank, and here's our Void Gauntlet. First you have the Annihilation Path, which is mainly focused around just dealing more damage and also debuffing enemies. Then we have Decay, which will help you as a healer to heal your allies. It has powers where you can target an enemy with your essence Rupture, and whenever somebody hits the target, they will heal for 20% of the damage done. That's a very useful ability just to have a passive continuous heal. And otherwise, again, you're debuffing and buffing. You have your Orb of Decay, and you have your Baleful Tether. Now, we can also access all of the weapons neatly there, and we can actually have a look exactly what this Void Gauntlet is going to look like. We can slot it in there, and here we have access to it. Now, just hovering over the tooltip, you can see that it has a few unique abilities. The first one is a light attack, which is just a standard hit for 100% weapon damage. The second one is a heavy attack that deals 125% void damage and will also heal you for 20% of the damage done. And the final one is Harvest Essence, basically converting your health into mana over time. And that's what happens when you hold down this gauntlet. You can see I'm losing health right there. Now, its normal attacks just look like this. You'll just be hurling those purple balls of energy, similar to your ice gauntlet and so on. However, what you can very nicely do is turn it into a melee weapon with this Annihilation Void Blade. We can see we just press that, and now we have this blade, which whenever we light attack or even heavy attack will cause you to stab or just slash your foes. Now, this blade won't last indefinitely, so you're going to have to keep aware of that. But we can buff up the weapon a bit more, and finally getting it to deal more crit damage and also being able to heal yourself. So it's very weapon leech orientated, where you will suck the life from your enemies and also have the ability to debuff them as well, so they take increased amount of damage and also fortifying. You can see the capstone here is Void Caller, where you can gain stacks and gain this aura that heals yourself and friendlies for 30% weapon damage, and it will also deal 30% weapon damage per second to enemies within that aura. You can see you have this power Petrifying Scream, which we can cast it like so, and it just creates a burst, which will then go and deal 100% weapon damage, stagger those enemies, and also inflict root to them, disabling their movement for 2 seconds. You can buff it up to increase the root duration by 1 second on targets below 50% health, and also gain 4 to 5 for each enemy hit, stacking 3 times. The Void Blade basically turns your basic attack into a quick slash that deals 100% weapon damage, and the heavy thrust attack, which is 150% weapon damage. And both attacks will inflict disintegrate, dealing 5% weapon damage per second and reducing the damage absorption by 5%. Here's where your debuffing comes into play, since you'll make the target reduce their defense, meaning you can deal more damage to them. That's very neat and will affect then everybody's damage. You can gain Fortify then as well with this perk. You can gain extra critical damage with this one, and the Leeching Blade giving yourself that heals for each of those disintegrate stacks. Then we have our Oblivion, which is going to be this one here, which just creates this aura around you on the ground. Unfortunately, it doesn't follow you, but it has the ability, as we can see, deal 30% weapon damage per second to enemies within the area, and also grant Empower to yourself and friendlies, basically increasing the damage they deal by 20%, 5-meter radius and a 6-second duration. Not the biggest, but again, a very good buff to everybody's damage. Then you have your Withering Oblivion to buff that up, causing your attacks to weaken your target and reducing the damage they take by 5% for 5 seconds. And this can stack 3 times again. And then you have finally the next buff, giving you stamina per second for yourself and also your friendlies while inside this radius. Unfortunately, you can't increase the uptime, and it has a 20-second cooldown. The Blade a 25-second cooldown, and the Petrifying Scream a 15-second cooldown. All of these again costing you that mana, so again you're going to have to keep aware of it and keep managing it. If you were to stack this with an Ice Gauntlet, you can get that mana back in no time at all. You can always convert your health also to mana. Entombed, the Ice Gauntlet is a very good ability to get your mana back. Highly recommend checking it out if you haven't. So then we have these little perks. This one here, causing when you crit to heal. You also have your Refreshing Frailty, causing a cooldown reduction on abilities when you successfully hit the enemies inflicted by 3 or more debuff stacks. And then you have Empowering Proximity, giving yourself that empower when casting abilities within a 5-meter distance of an enemy, increasing damage by 10% for 5 seconds. Again, can stack up to that 3 times. And then you can also gain Keen Humility, a 10% crit chance while all abilities are on cooldown. And then you'll also have a 10% extra damage while below 50% mana, and also a 10% critical chance while above 50% health. So that's gain both of those. So that's a pretty neat way to gain that extra crit chance just all the time. And then a 10% cooldown reduction on abilities on a critical hit. So that's very neat stacking there. You also finally have your Efficient Harvest when you're causing your Harvest Essence drain, reducing the amount of health you deal to yourself by 50% while you're below that 25% mana. And that's the holding it down, dealing damage to yourself thing just here. And that's the Annihilation Path. Looks very neat. I love the ability to be able to heal yourself and have melee abilities. It makes it so that you can pair it with the Ice Gauntlet or the Fire Staff, actually having a melee weapon to play around with, meaning you're not going to be always having to dodge and run away from your enemies. And if you do get hit, you don't have a way to really heal yourself. The Fire Staff does have the Incinerate, but the heal again is very small, with only 20% of damage dealt as health. And the Ice Gauntlet had no ability to heal yourself. You could pop some food and then entomb yourself for that heal, but that was it really. Nothing compared to these other melee weapons like the Great Axe or the Warhammer, where you could get nice decent heals on your hits, along with the Hatchet having the Berserk passive to also heal yourself. So it's very nice to see this Void Gauntlet coming out with lots of debuff and buffing, and also the heal self abilities. Now finally, let's respec that all and check out the Decay Path. This is the path you would use if you just want to be that secondary healer, or pretty much just what you would use as a healer for your secondary weapon. Again, this Void Gauntlet scales off 65% of your focus and 90% off your intelligence. If you just want to use this for damage, intelligence is the way to go. If you want to use it to heal, focus is the way to go. You would use a Life Staff and a Void Gauntlet. You can have it specced out so you're fully on focus as a healer, and also use the Void Gauntlet to deal damage when you're solo questing if you have it specced out with the Annihilation tree. But with the Decay, you can use it to even further support your allies. You may run into issues with mana regen with using mana on both weapons, but hopefully we have some abilities here where we can easily gain mana back. Of course, we do again have the ability to drain our health with Harvest Essence to gain more mana, which can be pretty neat. So first up in the Decay tree, we have the Orb of Decay. And let's go and cast this right here. And you can see it'll shoot out that orb, which will go away from you and then come back to you again. And we can see it has two different effects with that. When you fire the unblockable orb, it will pass through enemies, dealing 100% weapon damage, inflicting Disintegrate, dealing 5% weapon damage per second, and reducing the damage they absorb by 5%. So another debuff ability, and this can stack up to 3 times, and at max range it transforms into a healing orb that returns healing friendlies for 20% of the weapon damage per second for 5 seconds. So it's again a debuff ability that can heal damage and also heal allies, which is pretty neat, but it does have a 20 mana cost. And then you have your Baleful Tether, which is this ability here, which I probably won't work unless I'm adjacent to an enemy. So let's run up to one of these boars. We cast the tether, and there we go. We're connected to this guy by this line. We have to make sure we don't run too far away or that line will break. You can see this guy's running after me, but there the line has ended, but that's just because it went on cooldown. Otherwise, we can go and hit this guy and that's him dead. Void damage will have those icons as you just saw there. But this ability will tether you to the enemy as we saw, weakening it and empowering you by 4% per second, 20% maximum. The tether will end if the target moves beyond a 15-meter radius. Has a 10-second duration with a 25-second cooldown. The third final ability is Essence Rupture. We'll go and cast it there. And that's it. It doesn't look exactly spectacular, maybe they'll work on it, but we can see it has the ability to fire a projectile that inflicts Essence Rupture for 10 seconds. It will heal anyone that hits the target for 20% of the damage done. But this effect does not apply to damage over time effects from the spear, the rapier, so on, anything that has a dot. Now you can buff up all of these abilities with Orb of Decay. We can make it so that we gain more mana on hit. We also can slow the enemies, reducing their movement by 30%, and we can also then press the ability input again to detonate the orb, exploding it, and depending on the orb's phase, you will either explode them to deal damage, which would be 100% weapon damage and applying a stack of Disintegrate, or if you explode it while it's heal, it will heal friendlies for 70% of the weapon damage, and the healing scales exclusively with your focus. Then we have with the Baleful Tether, we can upgrade that so that on successful hits it'll reduce your cooldowns by 5%, and you can also gain 100% mana regeneration while the tether is active. That's pretty neat. And you also have Soul Eater, gaining 80% weapon damage as health if the tethered target dies, so that would be good within AoE. Boss fights, not really. Then with Essence Rupture, we can upgrade that to give Invigorating Rupture. Players additionally receive 15 stamina when hitting the afflicted target, and also having Overflowing Essence. Friendlies within 4 meters of the affected target will be healed for 80% of the weapon damage when Essence Rupture ends. And this again scales exclusively with focus. So our final capstone we can see here is our Glimpse of the Void. We will gain a stack of Void Essence per successful ability hit. So whenever you hit with one of these key abilities, you will gain a stack. And whenever you gain 4 or more of those stacks, your next successful ranged heavy attack will reset all of your Void Gauntlet cooldowns. This could be very neat for your DPS tree, but that would cause you have to split your ability points, and that has a 15-second cooldown, so you can get this to proc very quickly again. But otherwise we have also perks with the Decay Path. The bottom one down there, we have Mending Evasion. Whenever you dodge with full mana, you'll heal for 80% weapon damage. Again, it's just scaling with focus and a 20% cooldown. Then we have Extended Suffering. Successful ranged heavy attacks will increase the duration of non-crowd control debuffs you have applied by 10%. Then we have your Leeching Bolts. Healing from ranged heavy attacks is increased by additional 30% damage, but that is if the target is below 50% health. Then we have our mana costs are reduced by 25% while above 50% mana, and we have cooldowns reduced by 10% per second while performing Harvest Essence. So that's when you hold the right click and just drain your life. And then you can also gain Fervent Thirst, gaining mana whenever you successfully ranged light attack against targets afflicted by your Void Gauntlet debuffs. And finally, you also have 10% damage on successful ranged heavy attacks against targets more than 8 meters away. So that's finally all of those abilities we have for our Void Gauntlet. Again, you have your Annihilation Path for your damage and Decay for your more debuffing and helping your allies stay alive with some heals as well. Not going to be as good as the Life Staff on pure heals, so you still want to focus primarily on that. So that's it, and this is how we get onto the test server and we can test these things out, which is wonderful. Very nice to be able to test these things out before they actually go live, and we can also see how things work with being able to get to max level and have all of those weapons maxed out as well. Gives us a place where we can test our certain weapons instead of, let's say, grinding them out on the live server already, and then you find out you don't actually like it, then you have to do the whole grind again. But I guess that's part of the fun of the game. We get loads of goodies here on the preview server with all of these packs which you can open to give you a bunch of these different boxes which give you different orbs, gear, so on. So again, hopefully this has been somewhat helpful to you guys. Just an overview. Welcome to the preview server and also the Void Gauntlet and my opinions and what abilities it actually has and its usefulness. Love going to be able to go and use this Void Gauntlet paired with the Fire Staff or the Ice Gauntlet for a bit of heals without extra damage from those weapons. So again, if I presented this well, consider leaving the video a like, and if you're new around here, consider subscribing. We'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.